Hello everyone, this is Cobalt. This is the next video in my character analysis series for Brawlhalla. Stick around till the end to hear about entering the giveaway to win community colors, emotes, weapon skins, sidekicks, avatars, or even the battle pass, and voting for the next legends. And if you want to skip all this and get straight into the information, there's a timestamp in the description, and don't forget to subscribe so you can keep up with the release of your favorite legend. In these analyses, I wanted to focus solely on the character's signatures. Light attack combos are covered much more in depth than I ever could elsewhere and function pseudo-comparably for all characters of that weapon class. So I'm not going to be discussing the general neutral of the character with their weapons unless it pertains in some way to their signatures. Firstly, I want to give clear descriptions of the terminology I'll be using. Startup frames are the amount of frames that happen after a move has begun until the first hitbox of the move becomes active. Active frames are the duration of frames that the move contains hitboxes that can collide with your opponent. FAF, or First Actionable Frame, is the first frame available where your character is able to move again after the move has been started. For all of this data, I use the character's jump to display the first actionable frame. Lastly, On Miss refers to the move not connecting with an opponent, and On Hit refers to the move making contact with an opponent. I'm going to be doing my analysis today on the next voted in legend, Vector. In the year 3006, the cyborg Vector travels back in time to 1987 to chase his nemesis. In this time, Vector encounters Sentinel and assisted him in fighting off the Cabal. He eventually finds his nemesis and battles against them over Los Angeles and defeats them in an epically climactic battle. Vector's weapons are bow and rocket lance. He hasn't seen any high-placing competitive results yet really, at least none that I'm aware of. So what's the reason for this? We've seen new legends frequently generate good results in the past few updates, even before Vector's release, so why has he not seen the same level of competitive play? He has a pretty decent stat spread, with 5 attack, 4 dexterity, 6 defense, and 7 speed. He's a pretty well-balanced character that can take a few hits and has decent speed. His weapons aren't exactly the best in the current metagame, but have still seen good results. So, is it his signatures that are holding him back? Well, let's find out. Let's start with his bow. Bow side sig has 24 frames of startup, active frames from 25 to 49 with an FAF of 69. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Vector charges forward, splitting his bow in two and striking forward with 2 swings from his bow. The sig has pretty high startup and FAF, and a pretty lengthy amount of active frames. It has a pretty high amount of travel distance, making it a decent burst option and a punish option at a distance. Be careful not to overshoot this move. Thanks to its lengthy animation and lag and high FAF, you can get punished really hard if you miss with it. Additionally, it functions well for a dodge read away if used after a side light. Bow neutral sig has 17 frames of startup, active frames from 18 to 37 with an FAF of 61. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Vector transforms his arm into a massive laser beam and fires a lengthy energy blast into the air above him. Gotta say real quick, I really love the animation on this sig. Seeing the laser fire and the capsules fall out of the laser, it's just really cool to me. It reminds me of Iron Man. Anyway, the sig has average in terms of its frame data, slightly below average startup, slightly above average FAF, and a decent amount of active frames. This move doesn't hit grounded opponents and has a very specific coverage, but covers jumping opponents and those recovering high. It's not a bad sig, just serves as a good punish option for a specific threat coverage, but its frame data is just alright. Bow down sig has 17 frames of startup, active frames from 18 to 31 with an FAF of 55. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Vector splits his bow in 2 and spins them on either side of him, providing active hitboxes on both sides for several frames. This move has slightly below average startup and FAF. He remains stationary during this move and it can be jumped over and he can be punished for this. But it can be a really good punish option on a neutral dodge or a dodge in after a side light. It's an okay sig and has threat coverage on either side of him. Next up is his Rocket Lance. Rocket Lance side sig has 24 frames of startup, active frames from 25 to 55 with an FAF of 79. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Vector jumps upward, turning into his jet hybrid form before descending downward. If this move makes contact with the ground, it travels along the ground instead of continuing downward. This move has pretty poor frame data honestly due to its initial travel distance and lengthy animation. It has a fair bit of end lag, and if spaced poorly you can get punished really hard for it. It's a decent option if your opponent is dash jumping or as a punish option, but not one that I would throw out much in neutral. Honestly, all of his sigs on Lance are kinda like that. Rocket Lance neutral sig has 19 frames of startup, active frames from 20 to 35 with an FAF of 61. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Vector transforms into jet mode and flies upward and forward. The sig has a reasonable travel distance and average frame data in all aspects. It catches jumping opponents well and those recovering high, and offers a lengthier coverage in the same range as Rocket Lance recovery. It can be challenging to punish since Vector is still in the air after the animation concludes, but it does have a decent amount of end lag, so use it if your opponent is jumping a lot. Rocket Lance down sig has 43 frames of startup, active frames from 44 to 72 with an FAF of 85. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Vector transforms, jumps backwards into the air, and then flies forward while dropping 3 bombs from above and exploding them onto the ground. This move has a decent amount of active frames, but it has an incredibly high FAF, though it doesn't have that much end lag, surprisingly. It serves as a good edge guarding option thanks to its lengthy hitboxes and low end lag, but if your opponent reads this, then they'll have enough time to make it back to stage if it misses. It's niche in terms of its coverage, and I don't think it's incredibly useful except in the occasional edge guarding scenario. So, overall, his SIGs are honestly pretty mediocre in terms of their frame data. He doesn't really have any that are very fast in terms of startup, which most characters have at least one. The FAFs on most of his moves are pretty lackluster as well. Not a good start for him. The one advantage that his SIGs do offer him despite their high FAF is that each of them has pretty good mobility, making them slightly challenging to punish if you aren't in the proper position to do so. His bow SIGs have a decent mixture of coverage. I mean, so do his Rocket Lance SIGs, but they're all at a distance from him and don't really cover directly in front of him or give him consistent coverage in the space around him. They're very specific in their threat coverage, though not necessarily challenging to hit if your opponent is jumping a lot. And kind of like Sayer on Lance. I think that Vector is a really cool legend. I love his design, and playing bow on him is really fun. Shame I hate Rocket Lance, otherwise I probably would have given him more of a try. I feel like his SIGs don't benefit his kit very much, or have a lot of synergy with his weaponry, especially whenever compared to Rocket Lance SIGs like Orion or Scarlet and bow SIGs like Diana. I think that his SIG designs just aren't the best, as much as I wish they were. And that's not a knock on the animation, just on the amount of utility that they have. But who knows, maybe we'll see some competitive results from him at some point. Today's code to put down in the comments is Starscream, along with your Twitter handle or social media of your preference. And if you get that reference, I appreciate it. Also, I'll be streaming on Twitch on Wednesday evening, so feel free to stop by and say hello. I'll be playing ones with viewers, and I'll be doing a giveaway for the esports color code. The link to my Twitch channel will be in the description below. Tune in tomorrow for coverage on the highest voted legend from this week. Comment to vote for next week's 5 legends. I'll be continuing this once a day, Monday through Friday, over the next 10 weeks until all 50 legends are covered, so thanks for joining me on this ride. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the release of your favorite legend, and hope to see you back for the next one. Once again, I'm Cobalt, and thanks for watching.